The aftermath unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of chaos. Through his office windows, Mike watched as the first resident burst through the community center's doors, phone pressed to her ear, only to freeze mid-stride at the sight of 7 tow trucks methodically working their way through the lot. Her cry of "they're taking our cars" sparked an exodus that would later be immortalized in security footage shared across multiple social media platforms. Karen Thompson emerged last, her designer heels clicking rapidly across the pavement as she alternated between dialing her phone and shouting threats about lawsuits and community bylaws. She reached her Mercedes just as a tow truck operator finished securing it, the same car that had been photographed blocking the fire lane. Her theatrical meltdown, complete with demands to speak to everyone's manager, was already trending on TikTok by midnight. The local news vans arrived within the hour, drawn by the irresistible combination of entitled HOA drama and sweet justice. Mike's security footage proved to be a goldmine for reporters. The morning news led with HOA's unauthorized parking scheme backfires spectacularly, featuring choice clips of board members installing their illegal payment system and Karen's earlier dismissive comments about his kind. By noon the next day, the story had gone viral. Comments flooded social media. HOA messes with business owners' property, instant karma. Watch entitled HOA President Learn About Private Property Rights the Hard Way. Most expensive premium parking ever, wait for it. The HOA's emergency meeting, called for that evening, took place in a notably emptier parking lot. Mike's attorney presented them with a detailed account of damages, lost contracts, insurance complications, utility theft, and fraudulent collection of parking fees. The board's lawyer, looking increasingly uncomfortable, finally interrupted Karen's protests about community rights to strongly advise accepting Mike's surprisingly reasonable terms. The formal apology was published in the next HOA newsletter, though Mike particularly enjoyed the required disclaimer in bold text. The warehouse property at 1275 Industrial Drive is private property. The HOA has never had and will never have any authority over this location. Previous claims were fraudulent and have resulted in legal consequences. Mike's new security system was installed within a week, an automated gate with key card access, high-definition cameras, and his personal favorite touch, a massive LED display showing the total cost of removing an unauthorized vehicle. $350 for towing, $75 per day storage fee, and a helpful reminder that all incidents would be reported for insurance purposes. The cherry on top came a month later. During a routine tax audit, the IRS took special interest in the HOA's mysteriously fluctuating auxiliary income category. Karen Thompson resigned from the board the same day, citing personal reasons and a sudden need to spend more time with family. Her replacement, a retired judge who actually understood property law, made rebuilding community relationships her top priority. Mike's business flourished in the aftermath. The viral story brought unexpected publicity, and his reputation for standing up to HOA overreach earned him several lucrative contracts from other business owners who'd faced similar battles. He channeled some of the profits into a legal fund for small businesses dealing with property rights issues. 1 year later, as Mike watched his crews efficiently loading equipment in the now orderly parking lot, a familiar Mercedes pulled up to the gate. Karen Thompson, no longer wearing her signature pearls, rolled down her window. "Mr. Chen," she began, her voice lacking its former imperious tone, "I've been hired to manage the renovation project across the street. I don't suppose you have any parking spaces available for rent?" Mike smiled, pressed the intercom button, and replied, "Sorry, we're at capacity, but I hear the community center has some lovely overflow parking options. You might want to check their newsletter." The automated gate closed silently behind him as he walked back to his office, the LED display flashing its constant reminder: private property. Unauthorized vehicles will be towed. No exceptions, no excuses, no HOA privileges. The HOA's monthly meeting was being held in the community center's main hall, a room Mike had actually renovated pro bono 2 years earlier. Now, as he set up his laptop and connected it to the projector, he wondered if that goodwill gesture had somehow marked him as an easy target. Karen Thompson's voice cut through his thoughts. "Mr. Chen, we have a very full agenda tonight. Perhaps we could table your concerns for next month's meeting." She smiled tightly, pearl necklace gleaming under the fluorescent lights, as several board members nodded in agreement. "Actually," Mike replied, clicking open his presentation, "I've already been waiting 3 months, and I believe everyone here should see exactly what they've been paying for." The first image filled the screen, a time-lapse video showing HOA board members setting up their illegal parking operation at 5 a.m. one morning, complete with timestamp and crystal-clear audio of their conversation. The room fell silent as Karen's voice echoed from the speakers. "Just put the lockbox behind the hedge. If he complains, we'll say it was a misunderstanding. Besides, his kind usually backs down if you push hard enough." Several residents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Mike advanced through his evidence methodically. Screenshots of email chains where board members joked about the property owner's patience, security footage of the parking attendant collecting fees and assuring residents it was completely authorized, bank statements showing the HOA's sudden income spike from auxiliary parking services. In 3 months, Mike announced to the now silent room, "You've collected $15,780 in parking fees from my private property. You've cost me one major contract worth $1.2 million. My insurance company is threatening to cancel my coverage. And yesterday, you had the audacity to fine me for not providing better lighting for your illegal parking scheme." A resident raised her hand tentatively, but the newsletter said it was approved overflow parking. "We paid good money for those spots." Others murmured in agreement, though some were starting to look worried. Mike clicked to the next slide, the property deed and his business insurance policy. "This is a private commercial property. Your HOA has absolutely no jurisdiction here. Every single car parked without authorization is trespassing, and every dollar collected is fraud." Karen stood up, her composure cracking slightly. "Now see here, Mr. Chen. We've been more than accommodating of your business in our community. Perhaps if you understood the concept of being a good neighbor." "A good neighbor?" Mike interrupted, clicking to the final slide. It showed Karen's Mercedes parked in front of his warehouse's emergency exit, blocking a clearly marked fire lane. The timestamp showed it was taken just 2 hours earlier. A good neighbor doesn't steal, a good neighbor doesn't commit fraud, and a good neighbor certainly doesn't endanger others for profit. The room erupted in overlapping conversations. Some residents were demanding refunds, others were defending the board, and a few were quietly gathering their belongings, perhaps sensing what was coming next. Mike packed up his laptop as Karen attempted to restore order, her voice rising in pitch. "This is completely unacceptable. We'll take legal action. We'll report you to the city council." He paused at the door, turning back to address the chaos. "You know what's interesting about having cameras everywhere? You capture all sorts of things, like board members discussing how to hide parking income from tax authorities. I wonder if the IRS would find that interesting." He checked his watch and smiled. "Also, you might want to wrap this meeting up quickly. I heard the towing company gets pretty busy after dark." The color drained from Karen's face as she finally realized the game was over. In the parking lot, the first tow truck's lights were already flashing. The security footage became Mike's nightly entertainment, not by choice, but by necessity. He watched as drivers casually ignored his prominently displayed private property signs, some even taking selfies next to them with mocking gestures. The timestamps revealed a pattern. Every weekday between 7:30 and 8:45 am, his lot would transform from a functional business space into what resembled a shopping mall parking lot during holiday season. His operations manager, James, had started arriving at 5 am just to cone off essential areas for their work trucks. But even those cones mysteriously migrated throughout the day, pushed aside by determined Range Rovers and BMWs, whose owners seemed to view private property signs as mere suggestions. The breaking point of that particular morning wasn't just the coffee growing cold in his hand, or the delivery driver radioing his dispatch to reschedule yet another crucial equipment delivery. It was the casual entitlement displayed by a woman in designer workout gear, who was now doing stretches against his warehouse wall while speaking loudly into her AirPods. "Oh, you know that empty lot by the fitness center? The one with all that construction stuff? Yeah, meet me here. They never use half the space anyway." Mike pulled out his phone and scrolled through his recent expenses. $12,000 in missed deliveries, $3,500 in employee overtime for staff arriving early to secure parking, and a growing list of clients expressing concerns about accessibility. His insurance agent had also left 3 voicemails about liability issues, each one more urgent than the last. The warehouse itself stood as a testament to his journey, from a small-time contractor to the owner of Chen Construction Solutions, one of the city's most respected commercial builders. The 2-story office space at the front featured floor-to-ceiling windows, now offering a panoramic view of what had essentially become an unauthorized parking lot. Behind it, 35,000 square feet of climate-controlled storage housed millions in specialized equipment, from industrial generators to custom-fabricated materials for ongoing projects. As Mike walked the perimeter that morning, he noticed something that made his blood boil. Hidden behind a perfectly manicured hedge, clearly new and not part of his landscaping, sat a small metal lockbox with a credit card reader. Next to it, a laminated sign read, "Premium parking, $75/month or $10/day. Credit cards only. By parking here, you agree to all terms and conditions set by Oakwood Heights Community Association." He yanked open the lockbox, finding a logbook that detailed 3 months of unauthorized parking fees. The HOA hadn't just permitted parking, they turned his private property into a profitable venture without so much as a courtesy email. The logbook revealed they'd collected over $15,000 in fees from residents who likely believed this was all above board. Returning to his office, Mike found an email from Karen Thompson, the HOA president, with the subject line, "Community Parking Initiative, Phase 2. Opening it revealed plans for installing permanent parking meters and hiring a part-time lot attendant, all without his knowledge or consent. The email was addressed to the HOA board members, with him accidentally included in the CC line instead of the BCC. This wasn't just about parking anymore. This was about a group of people who had decided that his success meant they had the right to appropriate his property for their own gain. As he watched another resident's car pull in, this one actually removing his private property sign and placing it in their trunk, Mike realized that being reasonable had only made him appear weak. The time for polite emails and professional courtesy had passed. He reached for his phone, scrolling to his attorney's number, but paused as an even better idea began to form. The HOA's glossy newsletter sat on Mike's desk like an expensive insult, its high-quality paper stock making the unauthorized parking map appear almost official. He flipped through it again, noting how they'd cleverly branded his property as premium overflow parking, complete with walking distances to various community amenities. The newsletter even included a waiting list for premium spots, closer to his warehouse entrance, naturally. His inbox had become a battleground of passive-aggressive warfare. Karen's latest response read like a masterclass in condescension. "Dear Mr. Chen, while we appreciate your concerns, the community's needs must be balanced with individual interests. Perhaps this is an opportunity to demonstrate good citizenship. We'd be happy to feature your business in next month's newsletter as our community partner spotlight." The financial impact was becoming impossible to ignore. That morning, he'd lost the Miller contract, a $1.2 million deal that would have kept his crew busy through winter. Teresa Miller had taken one look at the impromptu parking lot and shaken her head. "Mike, how can I trust you with my equipment when you can't even control access to your own facility?" Her words stung because they struck at the heart of his reputation. His employees had started keeping a log of incidents. Delivery trucks turned away, equipment moves delayed, even a minor fender bender between a resident's car and one of his forklifts. The safety implications alone were enough to keep him up at night. His insurance agent, Dave, had finally put it in writing. Current unauthorized usage patterns constitute a material change in risk. Policy adjustment pending review. The community's entitlement had reached new heights. Residents now complained to him about potholes in their parking spots. One woman left a handwritten note demanding he pressure wash the parking area because her designer shoes were getting dirty. Another threatened to report him to the city because his work trucks were too noisy when trying to navigate around the parked cars in the morning. James, his operations manager, dropped another stack of papers on his desk, photographs documenting the latest escalation. The HOA had hired a part-time attendant who was actually directing traffic in his lot, wearing a vest with the community logo. They'd also installed temporary lighting without permits, tapping into his warehouse's exterior power outlets. The electric bill spike suddenly made sense. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister Lauren, a real estate attorney in Chicago. Just reviewed those HOA emails you sent. This isn't just overreach, it's textbook conversion of private property. They're literally profiting from your space. Time to stop playing nice. Mike pulled out the security camera feeds on his dual monitors, watching in real time as an HOA board member conducted what appeared to be a parking spot tour with new residents. They were pointing at various areas of his lot, consulting the newsletter map, and nodding appreciatively. The audacity was almost admirable. The final straw came in the form of a certified letter from the HOA that afternoon. Inside was a notice of community impact assessment, with a $5,000 fine for failure to maintain adequate parking facility lighting and security for resident use. They had effectively fined him for not properly maintaining the parking lot they had illegally appropriated. Mike leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his graying hair. The past 3 months had cost him more than money. His reputation, built over decades, was taking hits he couldn't afford. As he watched another resident's luxury SUV pull into his lot, something inside him shifted. He'd built his business by solving problems, not avoiding confrontation. Maybe it was time to show the HOA exactly what community involvement looked like when the property owner finally decided to get involved.